Hi everyone, Guyde here, and today we're going to talk about stereotypes. Now, stereotypes aren't as fun to talk about like gay porn that we did last week, but they do cause a lot of problems in the LGBT community and a lot of problems across the globe, so I think they're important to understand and make sure we're talking about them. So basically, a stereotype is a widely held, but oversimplified and often judgmental view of a particular group of people based on immediately available attributes such as their age, their gender, their race, or their sexuality. And basically our brains are hardwired to make quick assessments when meeting new people. And this is a leftover defense mechanism when we needed to make quick assessments of new people in case immediate action was needed upon meeting them. Stereotypes are often true for a smaller subgroup of the group that they're about, but they certainly shouldn't be applied on a broader range, and they shouldn't be assumed to be true about everyone in that particular group. When you believe that a stereotype is true about everyone in the group, that's called a bias. And I believe bias is a huge problem on the planet today, and it's the cause of a lot of problems we have in this country, particularly around gender inequality and racism. And basically bias causes you to make assumptions about an entire group of people without actually getting to know individuals. And stereotypes and bias are so pervasive, they're even believed to be true by people within the group that they're about. And this is a big problem within the LGBT community. I've spent a lot of time in the comment sections on YouTube, and I've heard a lot of gay people using stereotypes to describe other gay people. You know, often it's about how gay men are, sex crazed, people who are afraid of commitment, and there's a general simplification of that. It's true that there may be a higher proportion of guys who are promiscuous in the gay community, but you certainly can't make that assumption about all gays, and it's definitely not true about all gays in the community. And this is just a small example of the type of damage that stereotypes can do. On a larger scale, like I mentioned before, stereotypes are the cause of a lot of gender inequality problems and racism that we're facing in the country today. Think about President Trump, who's generalizing Muslims. And he's making assumptions based on a smaller subgroup of Muslim people, and he's applying it to everyone. And basically he's creating this fear in this country of Muslim people based on stereotypes. And it's a wrong way to look at things. And in the most extreme cases, stereotypes have been used to justify the genocide of an entire group of people. Think about the stereotypes that Hitler used in Nazi Germany against the Jewish people, and the stereotypes that the Rwandan government used against the Tutsi to justify their genocide. And it can be very dangerous, and it's sort of a path that I see that we're heading down, and I want to make sure that you guys are aware of it so we can get ahead of it. On a smaller scale, day-to-day stereotyping can be dangerous because it basically justifies ignorance. It allows people to make snap judgments about people without actually getting to know them. And this can cause problems with any interaction between two people, whether it's simply making a purchase, or dating, or going on a job interview. And I think job interviews are particularly a place where stereotypes can be dangerous, because this is a meeting that's designed to make a quick assessment about someone. And because your brain is already in this quick assessment mode, you may be relying on stereotypes more than you think to make that quick assessment. And this can lead to an unfair assessment about a particular job candidate that's based on their physical attributes, like their age or their race, instead of their more mental attributes, like their abilities to perform the job that they're interviewing for. And stereotypes don't necessarily have to impact just an interaction between two people. There's also a process called self-stereotyping, where a person starts to identify with a new group, so they start changing attributes about themselves to better fit in with this new group that they're associating themselves with. I can think of an actual example of this process that I went through when I was in my early to mid-20s, when I first started hanging out with gay guys. If you recall, when I first came out, I didn't hang out with a lot of gay people. I didn't know how to act around them. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, so I basically avoided gay people for a long time. But this first group of gays that I started being friends with, they were on the feminine side, and they were a bit flamboyant. And they were a great group of guys, and we had a lot of fun, and we spent a lot of time together. But at the end of that first summer, I met someone, and I started seeing him. And early in that relationship, he said something to the effect of, I'm usually not so attracted to someone who's so feminine. And I was sort of taken aback by this. I had never been called feminine before, and I said, why do you call me feminine? Why do you say I'm feminine? So he listed a few examples of things I would do where I would be a little bit flamboyant, or I would sort of swag my butt as I was walking down the street or walking upstairs. And thinking about it, I realized he was right. I was acting more feminine. I had been slowly changing who I was and how I act in order to better fit in with this new group of friends that I had. And I did this without even realizing it. And while I had this group of friends that I was modeling my behavior after, young people can just use the stereotype itself to try and change their behavior. For example, if there's a young guy who is just coming to terms with the fact that he's gay and wants to fit in, and he believes that all gay people are fashionable. So he may try and become more fashionable in order to fit in with this new group that he's associating himself with. And this sort of leads to this vicious cycle where, young people try and act more like how they believe they should because they're part of a group, say being fashionable, and that leads to more people in that group being fashionable, which sort of reinforces the stereotype that all people in that group are fashionable and starts the cycle all over again. And it also doesn't have to be sort of a positive reinforcement either. Think of a young person who is the captain of his football team, and he may be going through those same struggles of realizing that he's gay. And he may believe the stereotype that all gays suck at sports. And he could be thinking to himself, well, I can't be gay because I'm the captain of the football team. I don't suck at sports. That means I'm not gay. And this could just be another barrier that he's going to have to fight through, and another sort of bias that he's going to have to get over in order to go through that realization that, yes, he is a homosexual. And those are just a few examples of the types of damage that stereotypes can do. But now that stereotypes exist and they can be damaging, what can we do about them? I think the first thing is to recognize that stereotypes exist and you may hold bias because of them. I'm going to put a test down below that actually will test the different biases that you may have. And the first step is recognizing that they exist, and when you start to meet new people, just try and make the assessment based on that individual person, not based on these pre-existing biases that you may already have. Another good idea is to always be exposing yourself to new types of people and new cultures. I think the more we realize how different everyone and individuals can be, the easier it is to make assessments on the individual, not based on the group that that individual belongs to. And lastly, if you see stereotyping or bias happening, call it out. You don't have to do this in a confrontational manner because, like I said, a lot of times it's done subconsciously. But just say something like, hey, you're assuming this is true about that person, but that's really based on a stereotype. You don't really know that person to know if that's actually true. I think the more people realize that they're using bias, again, the easier it is to recognize when it happens and prevent it from happening in the future. But that's really all I've got for you today on this topic. I'm kind of curious, what sort of stereotypes have you been a victim of? Or what sort of stereotypes have you found that you've been using without actually realizing it? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you thought it was helpful, and click on this head here to subscribe to my channel and stay up to date with my upcoming topics. If you have a particular topic or question you'd like me to talk about, you can leave it in any of my comment sections below, or you can send me an email to thegayguide@gmail.com. But in the meantime, get out there and be who you needed growing up.